Hey guys, Peter here to tell you about the latest from Distant Heritage, out February 10th on Century Media Records. This album has 12 tracks, 47 minutes in length, and this is the band's third full-length studio album. They are a Dutch-Slovak deathcore band. The album design works well for this record, and it's exactly what I was expecting coming in. A very compact, very balanced, very cohesive album that from the intro track that bleeds into the second song, Paradigm Shift, from that point on, you're fully engaged with the experience of the record is going to be like, and it never really deviates. It's an album that does have diversity, that does have changes, but overall the brutality of the album and the heaviness of the album hide a lot of those nuances, making them feel a lot more subtle, and therefore the overall experience is not one of diversity, but one of just robust, cohesive, and balanced nature from start all the way to the end. As far as the sound is concerned, this album can be defined by two different parameters: the sound experience and the atmosphere that drives from that sound experience. If you look at the atmosphere first, I think you're going to see that this album has this sense of falling down this dark and gloomy and doomy abyss, and every single song it feels like you're either getting deeper or that hole is getting larger. That is something that stays very true from the first all the way to the last song. This is almost a deathcore album with doom elements as far as the atmosphere and essence is concerned. It allows itself to not just permeate throughout the record, but when it comes down to the mix, that atmosphere, which is driven a lot of the times by the orchestration, symphonic elements, electronic elements, whatever you want to call it, driven by those elements, blending in with everything else and not really allowing you to see the forest from the trees. It does impact the sound because it makes everything bigger, it makes everything thicker, it makes everything more robust and definitely heavier. And with all of that, you feel the brutality of the album at first hand really up and close. But I think an album like this could have really made itself a little bit not lighter, but a little bit easier to digest at times if on the production side the atmospheric elements were a little bit better separated from the guitars and drums and bass and even vocals. I think the album would have had a little bit more life. It would have been an album that had more ebbs and flows, would have felt a lot more dynamic, and the changes, the nuances that exist from track to track in terms of the sound and the experience of that sound would also be more noticeable. Now, from the sound itself, this album is influenced by a lot of genres: death metal, slam, metalcore, noise, extreme metal. All of those are blended into this record. Some songs have more of one, some songs have more of the other, but they also created a track listing that offers you a sense of progression as far as that sound experience is concerned, adding more elements as you progress, making the journey a little bit easier for the listener. But this is a journey into brutality. This album, when it comes to the sound, when it comes to what you're going to get out of the sound of it, it's all about the heaviness and it's all about the brutality. The heavier, the more brutal it becomes. And I don't think they're trying to deviate from that. I think they were looking at making an album that would have those kind of stamps, that would make itself stand out just from how heavy it feels, how heavy it sounds, and how brutal it is. I think you can still do that, but once again with a little bit of a better production where you separate the atmosphere that you're trying to create from the elements that are creating it or that are in the backdrop of that creation. The album would be more lively, would have a little bit of a better sound, would still feel brutal and heavy, but it would have a better definition of its elements and therefore a better definition of the sound itself. Now, within that sound, within that experience, the drums and guitars really jump into the forefront, and I like the drum sound on this record a lot. It feels fat, it feels big, it has this large experience to it that never really thins out. And it doesn't matter if a song has heavier moments mixed in with some more methodic moments, the drums always sound very powerful, they always sound very thick, they always feel like they have a lot of volume to them, never flatting out, never losing that substance, never losing that element that becomes such a fingerprint throughout the entire record, one that I really enjoyed. I honestly felt like this album drum-wise was full. It had so much of it, so much sound, so much power, so much oomph. The guitars, on the other hand, are a little bit more diverse than what you're getting out of the sound of the drums. The sound of the drums are more linear throughout the record. The guitars are a little bit more diverse, and I feel like a lot of the influences of this record, as far as the genres are concerned, are more noticeable on the guitars because they peek in a little bit and they define themselves within themselves a little bit better from start to finish. There are some great groovy elements on this record as far as the guitar sound is concerned, some technical elements as well, but most of the record is all about the heaviness, it's all about the power and using the guitars to push that heaviness and power forward, allowing the brutality of the album to not stagnate but rather have this rolling motion, almost like a snowball effect that starts already big, but as the album progresses that snowball keeps getting bigger and bigger until it becomes an avalanche towards the end of the record. Now the vocals on this album are very dynamic, very diverse, not following one standard or one pattern from song to song, rather giving you different looks and different feels. And I think for an album that has this sort of cohesive sound experience, a very thick and cohesive sound experience, you need something that kind of breaks through it, or at least tries to break through. And more often than not on this record, the vocals did that. The difference in styles, the difference in changes, the range is phenomenal. The guest vocalists, there's quite a bit of guest vocals on this record, including Will Ramos from Lorna Shore. So all of that adds diversity and adds ability to create songs that go a little bit outside of the norm. Even if the sound is staying steady, the vocal performance is changing the perception of the listener. All around a strong record, but a record that could have had a little bit better production behind it, and I think that production would have resulted in a better crafted album all around. The tools are there and you can see where they're trying to go, but the album needed to be a little bit more polished as far as the definition of sound is concerned, and that comes down to the mixing and definitely the production as well. So an album that has tools, that has elements, that you can see the growth of the band. This is their third record, and it opens the doors in terms of what they could become in the future, but they have to look at that perspective so that their sound doesn't become stale, it doesn't become confined to just one single experience, because I think there's so much to digest on this record, but you're just not able to do it because of how dense the overall experience is. As far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Paradigm Shift. This is technically the first song on the album, but also technically the second song on the album. So on the track listing it comes number 2, but the first song is an intro track that bleeds into this one. So when you put them together, you really have one single song. And this is a great opening salvo. Musically, big, brutal. Vocally, very diverse, allowing you to experience that brutality of the sound and blending in the vocals with it, enhancing it. So this makes the song feel like it has that presence, that it has that volume, because musically and vocally it's very well brought together. The elements are pushing you in the exact same direction. Adding some groovier guitar licks here and there breaks a little bit off of that condensed wall of sound, and that is important. It's important because they also added some samples, they also added some electronic elements. This track is very rich in everything that it offers. A little bit of a synopsis of the rest of the record, but also a little bit of synopsis of the rest of the record and how it's all put together. And it becomes a little bit easier on this track to break down all the different elements, but it doesn't become as easier down the road as you progress. So this song offers a little bit of a look into the future, but also offers a look into something that they could perhaps use a little bit more. Those samples work really well on this track, those groovier licks work really well on this track. Maybe a little bit more of that and down the line would help create some energy in songs that perhaps lack a little bit of it. Next we have A Sentence to Suffer. The drums are insane, not just in the opening of the song, but they're insane throughout the entire song. But the salvo at the opening, I mean, if you're asleep when this track kicks in, you're not going to be sleeping for much longer. This song is really going to give you a jolt and is going to wake you up. Great track overall, a track that feels relentless at times, but it also has some more methodic moments where things slow down a little bit and you feel the heaviness of the track slightly better. This allows for a dynamic experience within the song so that you don't have the same style, the same approach from start to finish. You have ebbs and flows designed within the track, ebbs and flows that take nothing away from the brutality or heaviness. It's just coming at you at two different speeds. Or from that kind of perspective, not reinventing the wheel, but creating a song that still stays together but has those ups and down movements that are very important. Vocally, a track that's also brutal, very brutal vocal track. it stretches itself. It gives you a lot. It has a lot of different faces, and I feel like that is an element of energy into the song, is in what makes this song stand out in the crowd. Last but not least, Heritage, featuring none other than Will Ramos of Lorna Shore. Now, the guitar and drum combo on this song is phenomenal. This, in my humble opinion, is the banger of the album. Not because Will Ramos is on it, but because of the design, because of how it's put together, how vocally driven it is and how dynamic it is, and the sound behind it really enhances all the beauty that this track has. First of all, great atmosphere coming from the sound and the elements around it. You really feel thickness from that atmosphere, and then you allow the song itself to be driven, to have ebbs and flows musically and vocally. A song that never really stands still and has great headbanging, not potential, but really great headbanging moments. One of those tracks that makes you headbang so hard that you end up sucking your own dick. That's the kind of track that you have here with Heritage. Great song, like I said, the banger of the album, and really a song that stands out in the crowd due to its quality, to how mature it sounds, and how mature it was, not just in the construction, but in terms of how it was written and also executed. This is it, Distant with Heritage, out February 10th on Century Media. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.